The people of Oak Ridge first noticed James when his barbershop appeared on Main Street like it had always belonged there. It was painted a sharp, leafy green, fresh enough that the smell still clung to the walls. Above the door in neat gold letters, a new sign declared, "James Cuts, Sharp and Clean." Inside, the shop gleamed. 2 leather chairs faced spotless mirrors. A faint scent of aftershave hung in the air. Men dropped in after work, drawn by the promise of quick, clean cuts at prices they could afford. James worked fast, clipper buzzing, comb flicking, and his fades were flawless. But there was one habit no one could miss. After each cut, James would sweep the hair into a small black plastic bag, tie it tight, and slip it into a locked wooden cabinet in the corner. No one asked why. Across from James's shop was Andrew Miller's tailoring, a small but steady business. Andrew had been there for years, watching new shops rise and fall. One warm evening, he decided to try the new barber. "James, you've got the whole street talking," Andrew said, settling into the chair. James smiled, showing even white teeth. "I just want to serve the community, my friend." But as James cut, Andrew noticed his eyes kept sliding toward the cabinet in the corner. The way his shoulders tensed when someone walked near it made Andrew curious. Within weeks, James's shop was overflowing daily. But strange things followed. Mrs. Taylor, the town's yam seller, began to complain that her eldest son had grown restless and aggressive days after his haircut. Another man confided to Andrew that he was plagued by nightmares, always waking drenched in sweat. In the market, women whispered over baskets of tomatoes. "It's that new barber," one muttered. Andrew chuckled, uneasy. "A haircut can't cause trouble." Mrs. Taylor leaned closer. "In this town, my son, anything is possible if the wrong hands touch your hair." That night, Andrew stayed late in his shop. Through the glass, he watched James finish work. The barber didn't throw the day's hair away like others. He locked it away carefully, almost protectively. 1 week later, Andrew's curiosity overpowered his hesitation. Past midnight, he spotted James walking with a black sack. Instead of going home, James took the bush path behind the old Anglican church. Andrew followed at a distance. In the moonlight, he saw James kneel before a small clay pot, murmuring strange words in a language Andrew didn't understand. James dropped handfuls of hair into the pot, poured a red liquid over it, and pressed his hands together as though sealing a pact. Andrew's stomach turned. He slipped away before James could spot him. The next day, Andrew visited Mrs. Grace, Oak Ridge's oldest herbalist. "Mama, if someone takes your hair, can they harm you?" Her eyes widened. "Hair carries your essence. In the wrong hands, it can bind your spirit, make you ill, even control your mind." Andrew hesitated. What if the barber in town is collecting everyone's hair? Mrs. Grace gripped his arm. "Then he's not just cutting hair, he's collecting lives." 2 weeks later, young Chris Thompson vanished. His mother swore she had seen him heading to James's shop that morning. Police questioned James. He claimed Chris had left alive. Andrew told Mrs. Grace he needed proof. His plan: get a haircut, distract James, and check the cabinet. When Andrew arrived, James greeted him warmly. "Andrew the tailor. What can I do for you?" "Just a trim," Andrew said, keeping his tone light. As James stepped out to fetch water, Andrew opened the cabinet. His blood went cold. Dozens of black bags, each labeled with a name. When James returned, Andrew shut the door quickly. "You're hiding something," he blurted. James's smile died. "Some secrets will bury you if you dig too deep." Andrew left at once and went straight to Mrs. Grace. The police raided the shop. Inside the cabinet, they found not only hair but clay pots, powders, and handwritten spells. Under questioning, James confessed. He had been selling the hair to wealthy clients in the city who paid for rituals, for power, influence, or revenge. Mrs. Grace led a cleansing ritual for everyone whose hair had been taken. The sicknesses faded. The green shop was abandoned. Months later, Andrew still passed the shop, the memory gnawing at him. One rainy evening, a tall man in a long coat stepped into his tailor's shop. "You are Andrew?" "Yes. Who's asking?" "My name is Samuel Harris. I was James's apprentice in the city. I need to know what happened here." "Over palm wine at Mrs. Taylor's stall," Samuel told him. James worked with a group called the Collectors. They believe hair, nails, and blood control destiny. His arrest means nothing. Someone will replace him. Weeks later, a new sign appeared, clean cut by Simon. Andrew watched him work. No locked cabinets. He felt some relief, until he found a small parcel outside his shop. Inside was a lock of hair tied with red thread, and a note, "Stay away from what doesn't concern you." The handwriting was James's. That evening, the radio announced that James had escaped during a prison transfer. Late at night, Andrew saw a shadow slip into the abandoned green shop. He ducked behind a wall as the figure unlocked the door. "He's back," Andrew whispered. This time, Andrew and Samuel acted fast. They worked with plainclothes officers who posed as customers. When James began cutting their hair, Andrew gave the signal. They searched the shop and found dozens of black bags, clay pots, and a list of names, including children. As they dragged James away, he shouted, "You think you've stopped me? The collectors are everywhere." The green shop was torn down and replaced with a playground. Watching the children laugh, Andrew said to Samuel, "It's over." Samuel shook his head. "For now. But if they ever come again, we'll be ready." "Awesome," picking up right where we stopped. The day the bulldozers flattened the green shop, Oakridge exhaled. Mothers let their children play again. Market women laughed louder. The evenings felt lighter. Andrew still checked his locks twice every night. Samuel noticed. "You don't sleep much," he said, leaning on the tailor's doorway. Andrew smiled without humor. "Sleep is for people who don't know what we know." Across the street, the new playground stood where the barbershop had been. Bright swings, a small slide, a seesaw with peeling yellow paint. Laughter rose and fell like ocean waves. Mrs. Grace shuffled up the sidewalk with a wicker basket. "Peace is a thing to guard," she told them, "not a thing to assume." Samuel glanced toward the road. "We guarded it once," he said. "We can guard it again." A week later, Andrew's phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Mr. Miller?" a crisp voice asked. "Detective Laura Bennett. State Investigations. We'd like a statement on the collectors. We're building a case beyond Oakridge." Andrew swallowed. "You're actually going after them?" "We are," Bennett said. "But we need witnesses who can survive the attention." Her words landed like a weight. "Survive the attention. Send the time and place," Andrew replied. After he hung up, Samuel raised an eyebrow. "You're going to the city?" "We," Andrew corrected. "We're going." Detective Bennett met them in a quiet government office smelling of dust and toner. She had steady eyes and a notebook with neat, confident handwriting. "We found this in James's second shop," she said, sliding a photocopy across the table, a list of names in block letters. Some are marked with stars. Andrew scanned the paper. Then his finger stopped. Chris Thompson. A star beside the name. His chest tightened. "The boy who went missing." Bennett nodded. "We traced that entry to a safe house in a town 3 hours from here. We raided it yesterday." Andrew held his breath. "We found Chris alive," she said softly. "Thin. Frightened. But alive." Samuel closed his eyes and exhaled. Andrew gripped the edge of the table. "Can we see him?" "In time. He's with a counselor," Bennett said. "But he asked if the barber was gone. I told him the truth, for now." James sat in a high-security prison 2 states away. Still, paper traveled where bodies couldn't. Detective Bennett placed a clear plastic folder on the table. Intercepted letters. James writes to someone he calls Aunt Evelyn and Mr. Cross. Samuel frowned. Evelyn. Cross. 2 people or 1 alias? Andrew asked. Bennett tapped the letters. "We think 2. Evelyn Cross may be the matron who recruits in city salons. Mr. Cross appears to be a separate figure, a coordinator with money. We're working to separate rumor from fact." Andrew flipped a page. James's handwriting was neat, almost delicate. Aunt Evelyn. The shop is gone. The town smiles. But our supply lines remain. Hair is only one door. Nails open another. Blood opens all. J. Samuel shivered. He writes like he's still free. Belief is a prison too, Bennett said. Back in Oak Ridge, Mrs. Grace called a small meeting at the community hall. Candles flickered in empty beer bottles along the walls. She drew 3 symbols with chalk on a slate board, a spiral, a knot, a circle with 4 dots. Things you must know, she told the room. The spiral binds, hair and nail. The knot confuses, dreams and memory. The circle with 4 points is a door, the threshold where a life can be bent if fear is present. A young mother raised her hand. How do we unbend a life? Mrs. Grace lifted a small clay bowl. Clean hands. Clean words. Cinnamon, salt, and courage. You speak the person's name over water and fire, and you do not break your voice. Andrew watched the faces around him, grim, intent, hopeful. Knowledge was returning to Oak Ridge, the kind that keeps a community standing. Simon, the new barber, swept his shop carefully every evening, dumping hair into a city trash bag outside. He kept his door open late, the radio low, the light warm. Andrew walked in near closing time. Another trim? Simon grinned. You're becoming my best advertisement. Andrew sat. The clippers hummed. You've had a quiet month, Andrew said. Quiet is good, Simon replied. He tilted the mirror. Do you see that? He pointed to a tiny symbol etched at the mirror's bottom corner. The circle with 4 dots. Andrew's throat tightened. Where did that come from? Found it when I bought the mirror off a city vendor, Simon said. I kept it to remember what to watch for. Get rid of it, Andrew said gently. Simon nodded. He lifted the mirror from the wall and smashed the corner with a small hammer. The symbol shattered like ice. Some things don't belong in the shop, Simon murmured. Andrew arrived at the shop one morning to find his front glass spiderwebbed with a neat hole at the center. On the floor lay a pebble wrapped in paper. He uncurled the note. The collectors do not forget. C. Samuel read it, jaw tight. C for cross. Or for circle, Andrew said. Or for Chris if someone wants to play with our heads. They replaced the glass by noon. By dusk, Mrs. Grace had marked both their thresholds with a thin line of salt and a whispered blessing. Sleep, she told them. You fight shadows better after rest. Detective Bennett's team hit a salon in the city near midnight. They'd traced money, messages, and one package of labeled hair to a backroom there. A woman in her late 50s stood at a sink when they entered, lean, composed, with silver hair coiled like rope. She did not flinch at the badges. Evelyn Cross? Bennett asked. The woman smiled with tired eyes. People call me that. It makes them feel safe to put an ante to their fears. Hands where I can see them, Bennett said. Evelyn's hands rose, wet with shampoo. You think hair is the danger, she murmured. It's not. It's the story attached to it. The story people believe. Bag the records, Bennett ordered. Seize the phones. Cuff her. As they led Evelyn out, she leaned toward Bennett. You cannot arrest hunger, she whispered. We only sell what people want. Bennett answered. Then we'll make them want something else. Back in Oak Ridge, business at Andrew's shop boomed. People liked the way he stitched sleeves and stories into the same seam. They came with torn cuffs and heavy thoughts. Andrew kept a notebook under the counter now, not of measurements, but of oddities. A man who woke nightly at 3:03, a girl who forgot her own name during hair wash, a grandmother finding knots tied under her bed. He logged times, places, small details, a matchbox in a gutter, a red thread on a fence. Samuel glanced at the notebook. You're becoming a detective. Or a witness who refuses to blink, Andrew said. The bell over the door chimed. A slim boy stood there, cap in his hands. His eyes were quick and skittish. Can I sit? He asked. Andrew recognized him from the photocopy. Chris, he said softly. The boy froze. How do you know my name? Because we never stopped saying it, Andrew replied. Come in. Chris stepped inside, shoulders tense, eyes on the floor. Samuel pulled out a chair. You're safe here. Chris sat, fingers twisting his cap. They told me not to talk about the room, he whispered. What room? Andrew asked. The one with the mirror that doesn't return your face, Chris said. Only the part of you they want. Andrew and Samuel exchanged a look. Outside, the playground squealed with laughter. Inside, the needle in Andrew's hand trembled, then steadied. Tell us everything, he said. We have time. Chris's words were halting at first, then tumbling. There was no corner, he said. The walls curved. They made us sit and stare at the mirror until we stopped blinking. What did you see? Samuel asked quietly. Not me, Chris said. A thinner me. A me who obeyed quicker. Andrew kept his voice calm. How did you get food? They slid it through the wall. The plate was always warm. The water tasted like mint and metal. Did you hear names? Bennett had taught Andrew to ask for details he could pass on. Evelyn, Chris said. And someone they never called by name. They just knocked twice when he came. Mr. Cross, Samuel said under his breath. Chris looked up. He wore gloves. He never touched anything bare. Not even air, it felt like. Andrew wrote it down. Gloves. 2 knocks. Mint and metal. Would you recognize the sound if you heard it again? Andrew asked. Chris nodded. 2 knocks. Slow. Like a teacher when you're in trouble. Detective Bennett called with news. We got Evelyn. She's talking, in circles. But she slipped a detail, a warehouse near the river, once a paper factory. Paper, Andrew said. Doors, forms, blank pages. Fitting. Bennett continued, we don't have a warrant yet. The owner is a shell. We need corroboration. Andrew glanced at his notebook. We have a witness who can identify a knock. There was a pause on the line. You sure he can handle it? No, Andrew said honestly. But he wants to try. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., Bennett said. Stay 2 streets back. If you see a white truck with black stripes, that's us. The river stank of algae and tired boats. The old paper warehouse crouched beside it, windows blind, doors rusted. Andrew, Samuel, and Chris waited in a parked car under a broken streetlight. The dash clock crawled toward 9. Then, movement. A black sedan rolled to the side door. A man stepped out, gloved hands adjusting his coat. From somewhere inside, knock. A long breath, knock. Chris sat up, eyes wide. That's it, he whispered. That's him. Andrew's thumb hit the preset on his phone. Now. 3 blocks away, engines started. The white truck with black stripes appeared like a promise coming true. Bennett's team moved with silent speed. 2 at the front, 2 at the side, 1 at the rear. A battering ram, a shouted warning, splintering wood. Inside, the air tasted of dust and toner ghosts. A long corridor, then a room that curved where corners should be. Clear, someone shouted. Room with mirrors. Andrew and Samuel held Chris outside with an officer while Bennett walked into the curved room. Mirrors lined the walls, but the glass felt oddly soft to the eye, like water barely holding its shape. Bag them, Bennett said. Careful. They're treated. A door at the back banged open. A figure ran. Black coat. Gloves. Swift as a shadow. Stop, an officer yelled. The figure didn't stop. He reached for a side exit and nearly collided with Mrs. Grace, standing in the doorway with a walking stick and a face like stone. You always forget the old doors, she said calmly. He pivoted, but officers were on him. The gloves slipped as they pinned his hands. His coat tore. A thin scar crossed his wrist like a pale rope. Mr. Cross, Bennett said, breathing hard. We've been waiting. He smiled without warmth. Everyone is a collector, he murmured. We only admit it. Cuff him, Bennett snapped. And read it slow. I want him to hear every word. By dawn, the warehouse was a grid of yellow tape and camera flashes. Officers carried out mirrors wrapped in cloth, boxes of little bags, and a ledger with neat columns that made Andrew's skin crawl. Mrs. Grace sat on a crate, sipping tea from a thermos. Paper can cut deeper than knives, she said to no one in particular. Bennett walked over, eyes tired but alight. We'll need statements. Then you can go home. Chris stood at the door, sunlight hitting his face. He blinked once, twice, then smiled, small and real. Samuel touched Andrew's arm. You did good. Andrew shook his head. We did good. And the boy? Mrs. Grace asked. Bennett nodded. He goes home today, but not without a circle of people around him. Mrs. Grace raised her cup. We can do circles that hold. The trial spooled out like thread. Evelyn Cross in one courtroom, cool and inscrutable. Mr. Cross in another, guarded and quiet. James appeared on screens from his distant prison for a web of related charges, instructing, procuring, laundering. Reporters called Oak Ridge a town that taught the state how to listen. Andrew hated the cameras and did the interviews anyway. Samuel spoke once, briefly, about apprenticeships and the danger of pretending ignorance is innocence. When asked what broke the case, Detective Bennett said, a tailor's notebook, an old woman's memory, a boy's courage, and time made by a town that refused to look away. Months later, life in Oak Ridge found a new rhythm. Simon's Barbershop became a place of jokes and easy arguments about football and weather. Every Saturday, he held up a clear bin after closing and let customers see their hair fall into the trash bag, smiling as if to say, nothing hidden here. Andrew added a small sign to his counter. We keep your measurements, not your essence. Stitching and stories welcome. Secrets checked at the door. Mrs. Taylor's stall sold out most afternoons. She kept an extra seat for anyone who needed to talk while chewing yam fries. Chris started coming by after school, first for 10 minutes, then for an hour, then to help sweep. He learned to thread a needle and to press seams flat. He liked that nothing in the shop was curved where corners should be. Straight lines, he told Andrew. I can breathe with straight lines. One evening, the playground's metal sang in the cooling air. Andrew and Samuel stood by the fence. Mrs. Grace sat on the bench, cane across her knees, eyes half closed. Do you think it's over? Samuel asked. Mrs. Grace answered without opening her eyes. Evil is a traveler. It will pass by again. The question is whether you've packed for the journey. Andrew watched a little girl push her brother on the swing. What would you pack? Mrs. Grace smiled. Names remembered. Doors watched. Salt where it counts. And a stubborn tailor who writes things down. Samuel laughed softly. And an apprentice who learned to sweep better. Don't forget a detective who kept calling, Andrew added. Ah, Mrs. Grace said. The city needs its guardians, too. The last sunlight slid off the slide, and the playground lights blinked on, one by one, small circles of brightness holding steady against the coming dark. Peace is a thing to guard, Andrew murmured, repeating her lesson. Mrs. Grace tapped her cane once on the ground. Then guard it. They stood there a while longer, 3 silhouettes at the edge of a playground where a dangerous shop once stood, listening to laughter, counting the lights, and quietly, stubbornly, choosing to stay.